Daria Whitlow was already running late when her front right tire exploded with a sound that made her stomach drop. Her little silver sedan jerked violently to the right, and she swerved, gripping the wheel with both hands as she rolled to a shaky stop on the shoulder of the dark, narrow road. Rain tapped against the windshield, and her headlights illuminated the pothole she just slammed into wide, deep, and completely unavoidable. "Seriously," she muttered, banging her head gently against the steering wheel. She popped the door open, stepping into a shallow puddle with a soaked ballet flat. "Of course," she grumbled, staring at the deflated tire. Daria worked 2 jobs, one at the downtown bookstore and another cleaning offices late at night. Her third job, unpaid but full-time, was being her own rescue service. She grabbed her phone to call roadside assistance, but her screen blinked red, dead battery. She let out a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. Perfect. A pair of headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. The sleek black car slowed, then stopped a few yards behind her. For a split second, her nerves spiked. She was alone, it was dark, and her phone was dead. But then the driver stepped out, a man in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, dark slacks clinging to long legs. He looked more like someone stepping out of a fashion magazine than someone who should be anywhere near this stretch of pothole-ridden road. "You okay?" he called out. Daria eyed him warily. "Flat tire." He approached, and as he got closer, she caught the sharp cut of his jaw, the way his dark blonde hair was slightly tousled like he'd run his hand through it a few times. His eyes were a striking steel blue, and the way he looked at her made her heart skip just slightly. "I can take a look if you want," he offered. She crossed her arms. "You know how to change a tire in those shoes?" He looked down at his polished leather loafers and grinned. "Not ideal, but I've done worse." Still hesitant, Daria watched as he crouched next to her car, inspecting the damage. "You hit it square on," he said, glancing up at her. "Rims bent too, spare won't help much." "Great," she muttered, running a hand through her wet hair. He stood, brushing his hands on his trousers. "Your phone, dead," he nodded, like that didn't surprise him. "I've got mine in the car. I can call a tow for you, or," he hesitated, "I can give you a ride, I'm heading into the city anyway." Daria looked him over. He didn't seem like a psycho, just very put together, too put together. "I don't usually take rides from strangers," she said, understandable. "I'm York Nolan." He extended a rain-dampened hand. "Not a psycho," she stared. "York?" "Yeah, my parents were. Artistic." She cracked a smile despite herself. "Daria." "Nice to meet you, Daria. You can sit in the car while we wait for the tow if you're more comfortable with that." She watched him for another moment, then nodded. "Okay, but if you try anything, I'll end up with a stiletto in my neck," he finished. "Got it." She climbed into the passenger seat of his car in Aston Martin. She realized as soon as she sank into the buttery leather and smelled the impossibly expensive cologne that clung to the upholstery. "This is your car?" she asked, glancing around the luxurious interior. "Yup. What do you do, sell kidneys?" He let out a soft laugh. "Software, boring stuff." He dialed the towing service, gave them the location, and turned to her. "They'll be here in 20 minutes. You live far, edge of the city, near Grant and Pine. I can take you." She hesitated. "You really don't have to, I'm offering." She looked at him again. There was something steady in his eyes, something calm. He didn't seem like someone looking to take advantage. He felt more like someone used to being in control of a room, but not in the arrogant way, in the quiet, confident way. "Okay," she said finally. They drove in silence for a bit, the soft hum of the engine the only sound. Then he glanced over at her. "So, what do you do when you're not hitting potholes?" she snorted. "Work, mostly. I do inventory at a used bookstore downtown. And clean offices at night," he frowned. "That's a lot." Daria shrugged. "Rent's a lot." "Fair," he said, but there was something thoughtful in his tone. When he pulled up in front of her building an old brick complex with flickering hallway lights, he didn't comment on the neighborhood. He just parked and turned to her. "Can I give you my number?" She blinked. "Why?" "Because I'd like to see you again, maybe without potholes involved." She stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I know you're funny." And you handled a flat tire in the rain better than most people I know." She hesitated. "I don't usually, me neither," he said, voice low, "but I don't want to not try." Something about the way he said it made her heart twist just a little. "I don't have my phone," she said. "Obviously." He reached into the glove box and pulled out a pen. Then he handed her a business card and wrote a number on the back. "That's my cell. If you want, text me tomorrow or whenever." Daria stepped out, still holding the card. "Thank you," she said, pausing before she closed the door. He gave her a small smile. "Good night, Daria." As she walked up the steps, she looked down at the card. York Nolan Dynamics, she frowned. The name sounded familiar and expensive. Inside, she flipped open her ancient laptop and typed it in. The first headline read, "York Nolan, millionaire CEO of Nolan Dynamics, acquires another tech startup in billion-dollar expansion." Daria stared at the screen. She had just cursed out, insulted the shoes of, and been driven home by a millionaire, and he wanted to see her again. The next morning, Daria stood behind the register at the bookstore, staring at the business card lying face down next to the scanner. The name printed on it felt surreal after what she'd read the night before. She'd spent half the night researching York Nolan, trying to reconcile the man who'd calmly crouched next to her busted tire with the tech mogul whose face appeared on finance magazine covers and investor panels. It didn't add up. He hadn't acted like someone who owned a fleet of luxury cars or sat on corporate boards. He'd acted like someone who just wanted to help. "Hey, Daria," called me from the back. "Someone's asking for you," she blinked. "What, who?" Me tilted her head toward the front door. "No idea." He's dressed like he walked off a Milan runway, though. Shoes alone probably cost more than my rent. Daria's heart jumped. She turned slowly and saw him, York, leaning casually against the doorframe, hands in the pockets of a wool overcoat that looked like it belonged in a catalog. He looked thoroughly out of place between the cracked linoleum floor and sagging shelves. "You followed me?" she asked, walking toward him. "I asked the tow driver for your name," he said, "and I looked up the bookstore, not hard to find." She folded her arms. "You know that's borderline stalker behavior, right?" "Borderline isn't illegal," he said, voice even. "I figured if you weren't going to text, I'd come say hi in person." "I didn't text because I didn't know what to say." "Start with hi," he said. "And maybe work your way up to dinner." She studied his face. He wasn't smiling to charm her. He was watching her like he was trying to figure out where her walls were and how high they went. "I'm working," she said. "Tonight? I clean offices 3 nights a week." "Today's one of them," he nodded. "What time do you finish?" "Late." "I'll wait," she blinked. "You'll what?" "I'll be outside when you're done. We can walk or talk, or I'll escort you to your door and leave, your choice." She stared at him, trying to read whatever this was. "You don't even really know me." "I'd like to," he said simply. That night, when she stepped out of the building where she cleaned, he was leaning against the same Aston Martin, coat buttoned up, hair damp from misty air. She stopped short. "You weren't kidding." "I usually don't." They walked in silence for a few blocks. The city was quiet this late, streets slick with rain. He didn't try to fill the silence, which surprised her. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. "What did you expect? Someone who speaks in buzzwords or brags about crypto? That's my younger brother. I'm the boring one." "You're not boring," she said before she could stop herself. He looked over. That sounded dangerously close to a compliment. "Don't get used to it." A couple passed them, laughing, and York stepped aside to give them room. His hand brushed her back lightly, protective but not possessive. She tried not to read into it. "You live alone?" he asked. "Yeah, no roommates. I had one. She moved out to live with her boyfriend. I couldn't afford to move, so I picked up more hours." He was quiet for a moment. "Must be exhausting." "It is." "Then why not stop?" She gave him a look. "You know why. I could help." She stopped walking. "Don't. I'm not offering charity," he said without flinching. "I'm offering support. There's a difference. I don't want to owe anyone." "You wouldn't," she shook her head. "You don't get it. You've probably never worried about whether your card would be declined buying groceries." "You're right," he said, meeting her gaze. "I haven't, but I've worried about things you haven't." Like what? Whether your pilot had the right wine stocked on your jet, his jaw tightened slightly. Like losing everything I built after trusting the wrong person. Like watching my parents' marriage fall apart because they thought money fixed problems instead of facing them. Like waking up and realizing you have everything except someone who sees you for who you are, not what you own. Daria looked away, throat tight. I don't want anything from you, he said. Not your time, not your trust, not your number. I just want to see if maybe if I show up enough times, you'll stop looking at me like I'm going to disappear. She didn't answer immediately. A car splashed through a puddle nearby. A neon sign buzzed above a corner deli. I'm not good at this, she said finally. I didn't ask you to be good at it, I asked you to try, she exhaled slowly. You hungry? He blinked. What? There's a 24-hour diner 2 blocks from here. The food's greasy, the booths are ripped, and the coffee tastes like battery acid, but the pie's decent. He gave a slow nod. Lead the way. Inside the diner, they slid into a booth under a buzzing light. She ordered cherry pie. He got apple and didn't touch the coffee. You always this persistent? She asked. Only when I'm sure. Sure of what? He held her gaze. That something's worth chasing. She didn't answer. But when the waitress dropped the check and he reached for it, she didn't argue. As they stepped back into the night, York glanced over. Can I see you again? She paused, then nodded. Yeah. But next time, I'm picking the place. Deal. He opened the car door for her, even though she wasn't getting in. She raised an eyebrow. Habit, he said. When she walked away, he waited until she disappeared into her building before he drove off. And for the first time in a long while, Daria wasn't sure if the unease in her chest was fear or something dangerously close to hope. The first time York showed up at the bookstore again, Daria thought it was a coincidence. The second time, he claimed he was in the area. By the third, she didn't bother pretending she believed him. You do realize we sell used books, not cryptocurrency, she said, scanning a stack of dog-eared paperbacks someone had just dropped off. York leaned against a shelf across from her, his coat draped over one arm, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. I'm expanding my literary horizons. I figured it's time to read something that doesn't come with a quarterly report. You're blocking the entire romance section. Am I? He asked, not moving an inch. Seems like a strategic location. I thought you were too busy with mergers and expansions to loiter in musty corners. He tilted his head slightly. You make it sound like I'm an intruder. She gave him a dry look. You kind of are, he grinned, and for the first time that day, Daria felt her chest lighten. They started seeing each other in stolen hours lunches on her break, late-night walks when her shift ended, moments that weren't grand, but somehow felt more intimate than anything that came with candlelight and white linen. York never brought up money, never tried to impress her with it, which was ironic, given how effortlessly everything about him still radiated wealth. But it wasn't just the way he dressed or the car he drove. It was subtler the way he made decisions without hesitation, the ease with which people deferred to him, the quiet confidence that filled a room before he said a word. She found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, the way he stirred his tea counterclockwise, the way he rubbed his thumb along the edge of his glass when he was deep in thought. He asked questions no one else asked about her favorite childhood memory, the name of the first book that made her cry, the one place she'd go if money wasn't an issue. She answered cautiously at first, but he never interrupted, never made her feel like her answers were being weighed for value. One evening, he showed up at her apartment with a paper bag and a sheepish look. You cook? She asked, raising an eyebrow as he stepped inside, enough to not poison us. He unpacked an assortment of ingredients onto her tiny kitchen counter. I figured we could try something new. Unless you're emotionally attached to leftover noodles. Daria leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You bought real vegetables. I'm not emotionally prepared for that. York shrugged off his blazer, revealing a worn T-shirt underneath. I'll handle the chopping if you handle the sarcasm. She slid onto the stool by the counter, watching him struggle with an onion. You know, most people impress a girl with dinner reservations, not a knife and a cutting board. He glanced over. Reservations are easy. This takes effort. You're bleeding. He looked down at the nick on his finger, then at her. Still worth it. She grabbed a bandage from the drawer and handed it over. You're ridiculous, I know. Dinner turned out edible, barely. They ate on her couch with knees touching, bowls balanced on their laps and the faint hum of music from the radio filling the silence between bites. Halfway through, York turned to her. My father thinks I should move to London. Daria blinked. Okay. That came out of nowhere. He wants me to manage the expansion there, says it's time I stop hiding behind local projects, his words. Is that what you're doing? York leaned back, expression unreadable. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of making decisions that look good on paper but feel hollow in real life. She studied him. What would you do if you weren't trying to prove something to your father? He didn't answer right away. I'd figure out what it's like to build something that matters. Not just numbers, something real. Daria looked down at her bowl. You think this, she gestured between them, is something real? He didn't hesitate. Yeah, I do. She set her bowl down. York, I'm not a project, I know. And I'm not a break from your world. I don't want you to be, she swallowed hard. Then what do you want? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low. I want to stop pretending that I'm not falling for you, her breath caught. I know it's fast, he said, and messy, and probably not something either of us planned, but I can't keep showing up at your door acting like I'm just here for small talk. She held his gaze, heart thudding. I've been trying not to want this, she said quietly. Why? Because nothing about us makes sense, she said. And I don't want to be the girl who falls for someone who can buy his way out of problems I can't even afford to have. I'm not asking you to fall for my life, he said. I'm asking you to take a chance on me. She looked at him, really looked the way his eyes searched hers, the way his shoulders tensed like he was bracing for the answer. I don't know how to do this, she said. Then we'll figure it out together. She didn't answer, but when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. That night after he left, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the space where he'd been. And for the first time, she let herself wonder not what could go wrong, but what might go right. The invitation came in a cream envelope, slipped beneath Daria's bookstore register during her shift. Her name was written in crisp ink across the front, the strokes too elegant to be anyone but York's assistant or York himself if he'd bothered to slow down for once. She opened it cautiously. Join me tonight, no expectations, just trust, no address. Just a black card tucked inside with a time 7 o'clock and a driver's name. Daria turned the card over twice. Her chest tightened. By 7, she was in the back seat of a sleek black car, her fingers knotted in her lap. The driver didn't speak, only nodded respectfully when she climbed in. The city passed by in a blur of lights and motion until the car curved toward the river and stopped at a private dock. A yacht waited at the edge of the pier, aglow with soft lights, its polished deck empty except for one figure standing at the rail. York. He wore a midnight blue blazer open at the collar, no tie, no pretense. The wind moved through his hair as he turned at the sound of her heels on the gangplank. You came, he said, voice quiet in the night. I almost didn't, she admitted. I know, I don't like surprises. This one's not about impressing you, he said. I know better than to try. Then what is it? He stepped forward, offering a hand. She took it before she could overthink it, and he led her aboard. I needed to show you something, he said. Not with words. The yacht pulled away from the dock slowly, cutting through the water until the city lights became a soft shimmer behind them. They didn't speak at first. They just stood side by side, the night stretching wide around them. Finally, York turned to her. I signed the London contract, he said. Daria's stomach dropped. You're leaving? I was, he said. Until I didn't, she stared at him. What changed you, he said. You changed everything. She shook her head. You can't just throw away a deal like that. I didn't throw it away. I restructured it. I'll still oversee the expansion, but I'm not relocating. I'll fly out twice a quarter and let the new director handle the rest. That's not how you do business. It is now, he said, because I'm done building things that leave me empty. She swallowed hard. You gave up a billion-dollar opportunity. Billion-dollar opportunities are worthless if you have no one to share them with. Her eyes burned. She turned away, but he gently touched her arm. There's something else, he said. She looked back at him. I bought the building where your apartment is, he said, her mouth parted. You what? I'm not evicting anyone, he added quickly. I'm restoring it. New pipes, better insulation, working elevators, no rent hikes. I'm not trying to rescue you, Daria. I'm trying to make sure you don't break your back just to get by, she stared at him. You're insane, he gave a soft laugh. Probably, you bought a whole building. I buy tech companies in my sleep. This felt more meaningful. She shook her head. You're impossible. I'm in love with you. The words fell between them like a stone dropped into still water. She took a step back. You don't know what love is. I didn't, he said. But I learned, you taught me. You saw me on the side of the road and decided I was worth saving. That's not love, that's guilt. No, he said firmly. I saw you and I didn't look away. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't bend. You didn't try to become something I already had. You were just you, and I fell. She pressed a hand to her chest. I don't know how to do this. You don't have to know, he said. You just have to want it. Silence stretched between them. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her face into his chest. I want it, she whispered. His arms came around her, steady and warm. I don't know what happens next, she said. We figure it out, he replied. Together. Later, as the yacht drifted beneath the stars, he pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it not with a flourish but with quiet certainty. She froze. You're not serious. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he said. I'm asking for a promise that you'll let me stay, that you'll let us be something real. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't need a ring to know I love you, he smiled, eyes shining. Then keep it anyway. For when you're ready. She took the ring in trembling fingers. It wasn't flashy or oversized. It was elegant, simple, and unmistakably hers. He took her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. I hit a pothole, she said, laughing through a tear. And now I'm on a yacht with a millionaire who bought my building and wants to marry me. Not once, he corrected. Will, when you're ready. She leaned up and kissed him, soft and slow. And in that moment, somewhere between the city lights behind them and the night sky above, Daria realized she hadn't just fallen in love. She'd landed exactly where she was meant to be. The morning light spilled through Daria's window, catching the edges of the silver ring now resting on her nightstand. She hadn't worn it, yet York hadn't asked her to, but she found herself watching it like it might disappear if she blinked. The truth was, she was still trying to believe it all hadn't been a dream. The man, the yacht, the quiet promise in his voice. She'd told herself for so long that she didn't need anyone to save her. But York had never tried to save her. He'd simply stood beside her and waited until she was ready to stop running. As she pulled on her coat, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Me from the bookstore. I just got here, Me said breathlessly. And there's something insane going on outside. You need to get down here. By the time Daria arrived, she stopped cold on the sidewalk. The entire storefront had been transformed. Gone were the faded windows and the flickering sign. In their place stood a gleaming new facade, still the same beloved bookstore, but revitalized. A painted wooden sign with gilded lettering read, Whitlow's Books. Beneath it, a small plaque shone, dedicated to the woman with ink on her fingers and fire in her heart. She spun around. York stood across the street, leaning on a lamppost, hands in the pockets of a slate-gray coat. When he saw her spot him, he crossed the street slowly. What did you do? She asked, breath catching. You once told me that rent was a beast, that hours were long and margins thin, so I bought the building next door, turned it into a cafe, and merged it with the store. The profits from the cafe will cover the bookstore's rent in full. I didn't ask for this. I know, he said. You didn't have to. I wanted to do it because it matters to you, and anything that matters to you matters to me. She looked up at the sign again. You renamed it. I asked the owner, he said. He was about to retire. I made him a generous offer. She was quiet for a long moment. You didn't do this to prove something, did you? No, he said. I did it because I love you. And because I want you to have a future that doesn't involve breaking your back for a dream you've already earned. A warm gust of wind lifted her hair, but she didn't move. I'm scared, she said finally, of how much I feel, of how fast all of this happened. So am I, York said. But I've built companies from scratch. I've watched them rise and fall. This what we're building, it's the only thing I've ever been terrified to lose. She stepped toward him. I want to build it too, his voice softened. Then let's stop waiting. Later that week, York brought her to a rooftop garden she didn't know existed. It wasn't a restaurant or a venue, it was private, quiet, overflowing with climbing roses and lavender that perfumed the air. Fairy lights twisted around trellises, and a small table stood in the center with 2 white chairs and a bottle of something golden chilling in a bucket beside it. He didn't kneel. He didn't need to. He held out the ring she'd kept tucked away and said, "Come home with me." She nodded, eyes shining. He slipped it on her finger. They married 6 weeks later, not in a ballroom or on a yacht, but in a converted greenhouse filled with wildflowers, friends, and no press. Me cried through the whole ceremony. York's brother, who had flown in from Switzerland, gave a toast that included the phrase, "I never thought we'd see the day." York never let go of her hand the entire night. On their wedding night, he carried her over the threshold of a penthouse she'd never seen because he'd designed it for her from the ground up. The walls were lined with bookshelves and large windows that overlooked the city she'd once trudged through on foot. The kitchen had a breakfast nook where she could drink her coffee in the morning sun. The bedroom was filled with soft gray linens and the faint scent of rosemary. She stood in the middle of the living room and turned in a slow circle. "This is ours," York finished. "Everything from here on out." She walked to him barefoot, her dress trailing behind her. "I still have no idea what I did to deserve this." "You didn't do anything," he said. "You were just you, that was enough." She rested her head against his chest. "I love you, I know," he said, voice low. "And I'll never stop giving you reasons to say it." They fell asleep, tangled together, rain pattering softly against the windows like the city was wrapping them in its own quiet blessing. A year later, Daria stood behind the counter of Whitlow's Books, now one of the most beloved combined bookstore cafes in the city. A long line curled out the door every Saturday morning. She no longer worked 2 jobs. She spent her days surrounded by stories, her nights wrapped in the arms of a man who had once been a stranger on a rainy road. York walked in late that afternoon, a paper bag in hand. She raised an eyebrow. "Lemon tarts," he said. "From that place you keep swearing is better than mine." She reached for the bag. "Because it is." They shared them in the window seat, the scent of coffee and books filling the air around them. "You ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't hit that pothole?" she asked, licking sugar from her thumb. "I do," he said, "and I thank fate every day that you did." She leaned against his shoulder. "I still don't understand how we got here." "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to stay." She turned her face up to his. "Always," and she did.